Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
What's going on? Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show here on DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter and Facebook on the Daily Racing Form pages. If you check this thing out, podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Today is July the 7th. It's a Friday. If you're here in New York City or anywhere kind of in the Northeast region, you're probably getting wet right now. The rain is pouring down in Midtown Manhattan. It sounds like it's also raining out Belmont, New York, which is going to have some ramifications as far as the racing tomorrow is concerned. That's going to be Stars and Stripes Day, but the racing tomorrow by itself is going to have some ramifications, I think, going forward. And let's kind of dive into that a little bit, not just for the immediate sort of game, but I think going forward, you've got a couple of races tomorrow that are going to possibly shape how people look at some of these divisions and some of these horses going forward down the road and possibly into the time where we start talking about Eclipse Awards. We have a long way to go, but again, it's something worth talking about when you've got so many big races going on at Belmont Park tomorrow afternoon. Let's start off with the Belmont Derby. It happens to be the Formulator race of the day. You can find that video and the free Formulator past performances over on the Race of the Day page on DRF.com. But the 3-year-old males, as has been well documented here on this show and basically everywhere else. You can go on Twitter and find it everywhere as well. The 3-year-old males have been a bit of a cluster. They just kind of take turns beating one another. Nobody really wants to seize control of this division. And you can even say the same about the 3-year-old males on turf. Let's just look at some of the biggest races that we've had here early on the turf anyway. You had Arklow win the American turf. We'll find out. Maybe he can stamp himself as really the authority as far as the turfers are concerned. You had good Oscar Performance win the Pennine Ridge, which is the local prep at Belmont, going into the Belmont Derby. And then you've got other horses like Yoshida, who's coming in. We don't know what to expect from him. You also have got the likes of Ticonderoga, who has always hinted at ability, but he's always been a bit of his own worst enemy, and maybe he's going to finally put some things together. So many different horses can win that race tomorrow. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on in the show. But before we get that far, I kind of feel like a horse like Yoshida, we're going to take a look at his win in the James Murphy down at Pimlico on the Preakness undercard. You see him in the white silks right now. He's going to bull his way out and go through Dover Cliffs, and he's never going to really get out of a gallop. Now, this is one of those interesting circumstances where you know what you're seeing. You're seeing a good horse. I don't think anybody's going to deny that he's a good horse, a talented horse. Question is, how good is he and how talented is he? Because his ears are up at the very end. He hasn't been asked to run a step. It's worth noting he had the race shape well in his favor. There was a lightning fast pace signed on. He was way at the back of the pack. His opening quarter was almost 27 seconds. So that's very unlikely that sort of circumstance is going to play out tomorrow afternoon. But on the flip side, you saw in his maiden score at Keeneland, he went right to the front in gate-to-wire fashion. There aren't many horses, turf or dirt, that have the ability to kind of just play off of what everyone else does. So I think he's very exciting. The interesting thing about the James W. Murphy is that field was dreadful, and it could make good horses look great. And I think that was the only concern I may have about a Yoshida. Now, if you think Yoshida is the goods and he goes out there and he puts on a show tomorrow in the Belmont Derby, I think the connections at this point have to at least consider looking at the overall landscape. We'll see what happens in the Dwyer earlier on in the card, but you had 3 different Triple Crown winners as far as those races are concerned, Derby, Preakness, Belmont. You've had a lot of up and down. We'll find out what happens a few weeks in the Haskell. We'll see what happens in the Dwyer before the Belmont Derby. If Yoshida wins the Belmont Derby, I think they have to at least be mildly intrigued in finding out if he can step on dirt. You see, the dam is Hilda's passion. I understand the sire himself was just a tremendous sire and tremendous racehorse on turf in Japan, but you've got to at least consider it and have it in the back of your mind that if he does what who knows? I don't know if he's capable of it or not, but I have a feeling he's very, very good. If he goes on and puts on a show tomorrow in the Belmont Derby, maybe then you've got to at least consider trying on the dirt because, again, 3-year-old male, that seems like it's a wide open division. As far as just turf itself is concerned, if Ticonderoga for Chad Brown goes out there and finally delivers and finally puts it all together, and then let's just lay out a hypothetical path like I did last week of talking about possible predictions for Eclipse Awards. If he wins the Belmont Derby, let's say he wins the Secretariat at Arlington. Let's say he comes back and he beats older horses in the fall. And then maybe he runs good enough, second or third in the Breeders' Cup. Maybe that's good enough to win an Eclipse Award as far as turf is concerned this year, where you get a win against older horses and you dominated your division throughout the bigger meetings as 3-year-olds are concerned on turf. Just some things to think about as far as the Belmont Derby is concerned. The Belmont Oaks, Chad Brown has 4 in there. What else is new? It's a big race. Chad's got a full load. Sister Charlie comes over here, though, for her first start for Chad. Now, she raced about 2.5 weeks ago, and she won't be getting Lasix. It's going to be her first start in North America, but she ran a really strong second in the French Oaks. I think this is a scenario where maybe we don't find out tomorrow, but maybe there's a scenario down the road that this ends up being Chad's best horse. And how unbelievable would that be, where he has the likes of Lady Eli, he has C. Khaleesi, he has Decida, he has, you name it, they're all in there. Maybe you add this one in, and maybe this is the best female that he actually has as far as his turfers are concerned. We'll find out. Again, whether she wins or loses tomorrow, I don't think that's going to be the true barometer or be able to kind of give us one indication or another. We know that she is talented. We'll find out if she handles a little bit softer going tomorrow, because again, if this rain keeps going, there's no way that it's going to be firm. At the very least, there'll be some cut in the ground. The Belmont Sprint. Mind your biscuits. His most recent run over in the Golden Shaheen in Dubai was nothing short of electric. You see him looping up on the outside. Rosario hasn't gotten into him yet. He's just going to kind of give him a couple of pushes here, a couple pumps, and he's gone. He's going to bury this field at a distance that's probably shorter than he really wants. This was at 6 furlongs. He's going to be running 7 furlongs tomorrow in the Belmont Sprint. I think there's a scenario where if he does what many people think he's supposed to do tomorrow, he stamps himself as strictly the male sprinter to beat in this division, especially since he's proven that he can handle 6 furlongs. And again, that's where the Breeders' Cup is contested at, 6 furlongs down at Del Mar. I also don't know that if he loses, does he lose that much? Considering it's his first start back from Dubai, it's going to be the first time Chad Summers has had a horse that he has sent all the way over there and then brought back and had to get them ready to go. From workouts, it sounds like he's kicking the barn down, the stall down. He's ready to go. He wants to fire, but he could really, with an authoritative performance tomorrow. And let's keep in mind, it's not the most star-studded group of sprinters that we've ever seen in tomorrow's race, the Belmont Sprint. But at the same time, if this horse goes out and does what many people think he's capable of, and many people think he's supposed to do, he stamps himself as the horse to beat in that division. And then we wrap up with Suburban, where you have one horse that is odds-on in the morning line in Shaman Ghost. And, his most recent start in the Pimlico Special, I thought this was a giant effort. His uncoupled stablemate Dolphus is out there. Dolphus is a very talented horse. You look at those fractions, they're not blistering. It was also advantageous to be forwardly placed. And what does Shaman Ghost do? He goes and gets this horse, Dolphus. They're 7 clear of the 3rd place runner. I thought this was a giant effort. I'm not worried about him popping back to his left lead here late, because that's just what he does. This is his thing. But he's just a really talented horse. He's a game horse. He wants to go out and beat you. And I think this is one of those interesting scenarios where everyone knows who number 1 is. We don't even have to keep going over that. But this could be almost the counter punch or the counter to Gunrunner's Stephen Foster. If Shaman Ghost goes out there tomorrow afternoon in Suburban and just puts on a show, puts that field to bed, considering too, again, he doesn't necessarily have an advantageous pace scenario that he's going to be working with tomorrow. Matt King Cole looks like he's loose as he wants. Shaman Ghost is going to have to go and run him down. So I wonder if this could be a scenario where Shaman Ghost says, you know what? I know Gunrunner's good, but don't forget about me. I am just as good as Gunrunner, if not better, and try to make his case for being the dominant East Coast router as far as dirt runners are concerned. I think a lot of things are on the table tomorrow afternoon at Belmont Park. Hopefully the weather does clear up a little bit. I don't think we're going to be having firm turf, but I would like, if nothing else, to have a fast main track. So we'll find out. Hopefully the weather cooperates. It's still raining right now in New York. I don't know how it is out at the racetrack. I'll be out there later on this afternoon, but we'll find out. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a recap, see how we did last weekend, 2 races that we went over, and then we'll get you ready for 3 races, a big NYRA-centric edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. To California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticketmaker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticketmaker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front. Win the winner of the Gun Handicap.
This horse is the complete package. He's won from 7 furlongs to 1.1 miles. He's won on dual surfaces. He's won with and without Lasix, and he's traveled around the world and brought his A game with him.
He showed that he was a very top-class dirt horse.
Balance is key, and he was just perfectly proportioned. I think that's what made him so athletic and so efficient on the track.
12:11 on the east, 9:11 on the west. The Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, as well as the Daily Racing Form's Twitter and Facebook pages. Let's go into a little bit of a review, or a little recap, see how we did last weekend. We went over 2 races. One of them, again, kind of an anomaly for the way this show normally works. One was on Friday night and one was on Sunday afternoon. Let's start off Friday night, the Bashford Manor going into it. It was a 2-year-old affair, and we kind of figured there were 2 horses in there that you really needed to pay attention to. They were the outside 2 runners, and they were the 2 favorites. I thought the most likely winner was 10 City. I thought a live long shot was Hard Work, Clean Living coming in from Texas. 10 City, the hype train was just off the charts leading into that race, where I believe it was Copper Bullet, or one of I can't remember if that was the name off the top of my head, but you get what I'm talking about, the Steve Asmussen horse. It was between those 2. Boy, 10 City is very, very fast. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be the kind of horse that you're looking at come Breeders' Cup time. It sounds like Kenny McPeak is going to be content to sit him on the sides and bring him back in a race like the Iroquois in the fall leading up to the Breeders' Cup, but he looks like that kind of precocious 2-year-old that's just got giant speed, and now we're going to put him away until we get to the 2-turn races. I don't disagree with that decision. I mean, look, he's already a graded stakes winner, and he'll stand somewhere at the very least, but I don't know. He went off at 1-2, and he didn't disappoint. I thought it was a bit of a peculiar run for the Asmussen entrant in there, a little bit green, ran in spots. Not the ideal trip, I think, if you drew it up that way. And live long shot, Hard Work, Clean Living runs 3rd at 8-1. Really, again, in a 5 or 6 horse field, you're not going to get giant prices outside of the top 2, who seemed like they were stone cold, the 2 horses that you needed to deal with. So most likely winner 10 City gets the job done. Live long shot, Hard Work, Clean Living runs 3rd at 8-1 behind the Asmussen runner, who runs 2nd. The Queen's Plate was a fantastic race leading into it as far as handicapping was concerned. There was no clear-cut choice in there, even though Holy Helena seemed like she was going to go off as the favorite. I thought she was a most likely winner. I thought she was also a vulnerable favorite because 1.25 miles against males, she was still so lightly raced. And there were other horses that I was interested in. I just didn't think that she had some giant edge on the whole field, but had to acknowledge that she was the most likely winner of the race. Live long shot I thought was Tiz Slam. He was going to be my pick going into there. I thought he had a little bit of a troubled trip in that most recent race leading up the prep race for this race here, the Queen's Plate. And let's take a look. This is them turning for home in the Queen's Plate.
Of honor tackled by Holy Helena and Channel Maker, and the fillies hit the front. Holy Helena running away. Mega Gray in second, Channel Maker the outside, and deeper on the track is Tiz Slam, but it is Holy Helena 3 in front. Tiz Slam runs to second, but she is poetry in motion, Holy Helena, and she's won it by 3 lengths.
Robert Geller with the call. Holy Helena, it sounds like Jimmy Jerkins has already got it mapped out that they're going to bypass the Triple Crown up in Canada. They're going to come back to Saratoga, and they're going to run her in the Alabama at 1.25 miles, and that could be just an absolute bang-up race where you've got the likes of her, you've got Abel Tasman, maybe you're going to have a horse that comes out of a race like the Delaware Oaks, which is going to be run tomorrow afternoon. You've got so many different horses, so many different ways that you can go. Maybe an Unchained Melody, who we saw last weekend win the Mother Goose. So that looks like it could be a fascinating race. And again, Holy Helena, she's still very lightly raced. She's a little bit on the green side still, but there's no denying she's very, very talented. She loves the synthetic surface. Tiz Slam, I can't complain too much. He was very clearly, I'm going to say, the second best runner in there, but it was a chasm between first and second. So I made him a live long shot. I lost a couple bucks on him betting him, but at the same time, I thought it was a good effort. There's your exacta, Holy Helena over Tiz Slam. There are a couple other runners out of that race, though, that I think you want to just keep in the back of your mind. State of Honor for Mark Casse. State of Honor, I don't think wants any part of two turns. I think he's a one-turn horse at heart, and I think he's a dirt horse. I don't really think synthetic is what he wants. If you get him back, I don't know if you're going to run him in a race like the Amsterdam. That seems a little bit sharp at 6.5. I think 7/8 of a mile or a one-turn mile, that's really what he wants to do. Maybe a race like the King's Bishop or the Allen Jerkins, as it's now called. Or maybe if you're thinking even farther down the road, maybe a race like the Cigar Mile could be something for State of Honor. And, you know, I suppose Inflexibility is an interesting one where, you know what, I think she's better on the synth. I still think she's a notch below, and I don't know that she's as good as some of the fillies that we'll talk about after break in the Belmont Oaks. So I don't know what you want to do with her. She's got ability, but again, I mean, the fact that Chad has this one and she is arguably, 15th in the pecking order, that just goes to show how strong Chad Brown's barn is. So a couple of good races last weekend. We had a little bit of success. Let's see if we can do a little bit better this weekend, even more than we did last weekend. We've got 3 races on tap coming up tomorrow afternoon in Belmont Park, all of them for 3-year-olds, 1 on dirt, 2 on turf, the Belmont Oaks, the Belmont Derby, as well as the Dwyer. Stay with us, the Matt Bernier Show.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front. The winner of the Gun Handicap.
This horse is the complete package. He's won from 7 furlongs to a mile and 1/8. He's won on dual surfaces. He's won with and without Lasix. And he's traveled around the world and brought his A game with him.
He showed that he was a very top-class dirt horse.
Balance is key, and you know, he was just perfectly proportioned. I think that's what made him so athletic and so efficient on the track.
12:18 East Coast, 9:18 West Coast, the Matt Bernier Show here on DRFTV. Let's dive into it. We've got 3 big races tomorrow afternoon. We got 5, really, but I'm only going to go over 3 of them. The Suburban, you know what the story is there. And guess what? You can find out all the other big nuts and bolts. Go on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Forum's YouTube channel, and you can check out all of the stakes previews from myself and Illman this week. Again, all good racing, but I'm only going to focus in on the 3-year-old races tomorrow. Let's start off on the dirt. It's only a field of 5. It is the Dwyer. They're going to go a mile. It's a one-turn mile. Let's take a look at the field if we could. My odds, if you're new to this thing, far right side, not a morning line, not anything else other than what I think is fair value on each one of these runners. Let's take them right in post position order. The number 1 is Tale of Silence. I do like this horse, but 13-1. I think he deserves to be the longest shot in the field. The 2 Battalion runner is 5-2, not 5-1. Don't mind that. That is a 5-2, not 5-1. Practical Joke, 9-5. True Timber, 12-1. Giuseppe the Great, 7-2. I think the most likely winner of the race is Practical Joke. This has been kind of what everyone has said he's wanted to do all along. One turn, shorter distances. He's run really, really well in some of the bigger races for the 3-year-olds, particularly the Kentucky Derby. I thought Joel Rosario gave him a beautiful ride. It was just a more matter of he didn't want to go that far. There's only so much you can do to stretch a horse out until they finally just say, what else do you want from me? I can't do this. He wants to go shorter. I think he could be a serious one-turn type of horse. I think tomorrow there's a really serious chance that he is just a gross underlay. I know on the morning line, Battalion runner is 6-5, and I believe Practical Joke is 8-5. I won't be surprised if Practical Joke is 4-5, and Battalion Runner is 5-2 in that ballpark, just because everyone and their brother has talked about this horse and said, this is what he wants, this is what he wants. Well, here we are. This is what we're going to get. We'll find out if this is truly what's going to put him over the top and make him one of the best 3-year-old sprinters or 3-year-old one-turn horses that we've got here in the country. Again, don't doubt the talent. I think he's a nice horse. He was one that I will be using underneath. I picked him second, but I just think he's going to be a pretty serious underlay tomorrow afternoon. My pick in a live long shot, and I got to go with the air quotes, live long shot, is the outside runner for Nick Zito, Giuseppe the Great. We're going to take a look at the Woody Stevens right now. American Anthem, you weren't going to beat American Anthem this day. You weren't going to beat Bob Baffert this day. But down on the inside, in the white cap coming through with Gaffalione up, that is Giuseppe the Great. And he's going to come out, and eventually he's going to angle out to about the 3 or 4 path. And I think there are a couple things that you want to keep in mind. Okay, he had a really good trip. I'm not going to deny that. There are some people, though, that believe that inside, even on Belmont Stakes, they was not ideal. And you see once he gets out into about that 4 path, he's finishing quite well. This is at 7/8 of a mile. He's putting some distance between he and the 3rd place runner. And I understand American Anthem was wrapped up, but that might be a really good one for Baffert. Giuseppe the Great could be an interesting horse going forward. This additional distance is only going to be his friend. On the gallop out, he finished very nicely. You look at the pedigree, looking at Lucky on top. I only think he wants to continue on. Then maybe this is a springboard to a race like the Travers for him. Whether he wins or loses, I feel like distance is going to be his friend. I like Giuseppe the Great in here. I made him 7-2. I'm hopeful to be betting him at somewhere around 7-2 or even north of that. I think he's going to be the one that everyone looks at as the alternative to the top 2 in here. Understandably so. I mean, True Timber doesn't look like he's really as good as the top 2 or 3 in here, and then the same can be said for Tale of Silence. So I made Giuseppe the Great my live long shot. He is my pick, and I'll be betting him at 7-2 or greater. The Belmont Oaks. Field of 12. Let's take a look at that field if we could. This race is fascinating because you figure Chad has 1/3 of the field. The number 1 is Coasted, 24-1. Bow Recall, 6-1. Violet Blue, 99-1. No disrespect, just seems like it's a tough spot after breaking the maiden. Grizzle, 49-1. Key to My Heart, 16-1. Journey Home, 24-1. Uni, 12-1 for Chad. New Money Honey for Chad, 9-2. Dynatail, 16-1. 10 is 55. 12-1. The 11, Daddy's Little Darling, 13-1, and the 12 is Sister Charlie at 7-2. I think this is an interesting race. The most likely winner in this race is very clearly Sister Charlie. I talked about it a little bit at the top. Sister Charlie is coming off of the heels of a really strong effort in the French Oaks, where she ran second. She had a little bit of, I don't want to call it trouble. I think she just needed to wait. She was stuck in behind horses, and when she finally got out, she kicked on. She finished like a house of fire. I think she's going to do something very similar tomorrow. Keep in mind, this is a quick turnaround. It's going to be your first start with new outfit, even though it is Chad Brown, and he's done this successfully in the past. And there's also a little thing now in the back of my head. Her best runs, not that she's incapable of running on ground that's less than firm, but her best runs have come on firm going. If this rain continues outside right now, tomorrow will not be firm. It'll be probably on the good side at best. Because not only is it raining, but it's pouring right now. So it's supposed to let up around 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon. You have plenty of time for it to dry out a little, but I don't think we're going to be dealing with firm going. Sister Charlie, no disrespect. I think she's obviously the horse to beat, but I think she's going to be overbet. I made her 7-2. I think there's a chance that she goes off in that 6 or 7-5 range. My live long shot and my pick. This is, we talked about it in the stakes preview. This is a loyalty play, and I also think that there's some talent here. I like Bow Recall. We're going to take a look at her most recent start. This was in the honeymoon at Santa Anita, and she just keeps running into that Sir Cat Sally. And you see she's out on the front. Bow Recall is in those dark silks, all out right now underneath Talamo. She's trying, and she's just going to continue to inch away, and get closer and closer to Sir Cat Sally, but she can't quite overcome that tactical advantage that Sir Cat Sally always brings to the table. I think getting away from Sir Cat Sally, 1, that's important. Simon Callahan even identified that himself. I think 2, 1.25 miles, right up her alley. I think additional distance is only going to be her friend. And 3, I am not disappointed at all with this weather. Over in Europe, she won over Good Going. I think this is only going to play into her hooves. She has a big late finish. I think getting away from those rock-hard courses at Santa Anita, and she's never run at Del Mar, but it's in the same vein. I think that's going to be very, very beneficial getting to a course like Belmont. I think she's a live long shot. I think she's going to be much higher than the 6-1 odds that I have pegged her at, and she's going to be my pick in the Belmont Oaks tomorrow afternoon. the Belmont Derby. This is going to be a little bit of a different way of approaching this. I'm not going to give you most likely winner or live long shot or anything like that. I just want to talk through the race with the odds, and let's take a look at this field here. Right in post position order, we have 1 through 11 that are going to go, that are scheduled to go anyway. We'll find out. I believe right now there's some talk about Senior Investment possibly being a runner next week in the Indiana Derby, but at any rate, here we go. The 1, Good Samaritan, 6-1. The 2 is Ticonderoga, 6-1. Homesman, 12-1. Oscar Performance, 10-1. Called to the Bar, 12-1. Arklow, 8-1. Yoshida, 9-2. Macarios, 24-1 as we flip over 9 through 11. The 9 is Big Score, 13-1. White Cliffs of Dover, 32-1. Senior Investment, 24-1. The reason that I'm not suggesting any live long shots or any of that kind of nonsense, I don't know how this race is going to be bet. The morning line, Eric Donovan, by many people's estimation, is the best morning line maker that we have in the United States. This is going to be the rare instance, and I'm not trying to bash Eric. I just think this is the rare instance where this line, I think, is way off. Way off. I can't imagine that Ticonderoga is going to be 15-1. I think there's a chance he might vie for favoritism in here. I think Yoshida, he probably hit that one right on the head. I think he's going to take a lot of money. I was talking to Illman before we taped the Race of the Day video, and you can go up and find that on video.drf.com, as well as our YouTube channel on DRF, or our DRF channel on YouTube. That's how it goes. I think you can make the case, even though Yoshida is the horse that I'm picking in the race, I think you can make the case that even at the 9-2 odds that I've hung on him, I think he'd be a bad bet there. Just because, as I said at the top, the field that he beat down in Pimlico, Maryland, not good. He's facing much better horses. I don't know where he's going to be positioned. I think it's going to be somewhere between that front-running score he had at Keeneland and coming from the back like he did down in Baltimore. And there's just really good horses in here. There's so many different ways. Do you want to settle on a horse that you're not entirely sure is going to be able to handle the class hike, even though I do have a sneaky feeling that he is the goods? I don't want to find out in somewhere in that vicinity again. If I made him 9-2, I'm talking in about 18% chance of winning this race. Yeah, I suppose he does have that, but do I want to find out? No, I really don't from a gambling standpoint. I'll be using him in multi-race wagers. I'll be out at the track tomorrow, so if I'm playing that new Naira Bets Pick 5, I'll be probably using him in some fashion as an A, but he won't be the only one that I want in there. I think Ticonderoga is a very talented horse. I finally started to buy into him. I was never the biggest fan of his. I always thought he was a little bit more hype, a little more sizzled than steak. That most recent start in the Pennine Ridge, he was the one, I think, of the 3 horses, he, Good Samaritan, and Oscar Performance. I think he ran the best race. Ticonderoga is one that I certainly want to use. Arklow is one that I also want to use as well. Brad Cox is red hot. He's just an unbelievable trainer on turf in general. But you look at what this horse has done. His 2 turf races. He broke his maiden at Keeneland, came back and won a graded stakes race down at Churchill Downs. He was wide every step of the way in that race at Churchill, even if inside was less than ideal and maybe he was on the better part of the track. Point being, he carried a lot of ground that day. I think he is a very interesting runner. I think you have to use him. And you always have to acknowledge the Europeans coming over. I don't think this is a particularly strong group of Europeans coming over. Called to the Bar, bring some speed to the scenario where he's going to be forwardly placed. Probably going to make life difficult for Oscar Performance at the very least. Homesman, I'm not crazy about him, but I will acknowledge of the 2 Aidan O'Brien runners, he's the one that you want because I think White Cliffs of Dover, 1, I despise him. I just don't think he's very good. But you look at the way that he has run and at the distances he has run, it feels like he's over here as nothing more than a rabbit for the Belmont Derby. So, again, that was just more of an odds discussion. My pick in the race is Yoshida. I think he's going to be a bad bet, though, at anything less than that 9-2. He's 7-2 on the morning line. He may be the favorite in the Belmont Derby. Big day of racing tomorrow, Belmont Park. You're going to want to stay tuned. Also, 4:30 Eastern tomorrow afternoon, NBC. We'll be on there. We'll go over all the races, those 3 anyway that we talked about, the Dwyer, the Belmont Oaks, and I believe the Belmont Sprint. Not in that order. I believe the Sprint will be the second race. So we have 4:30 Eastern tomorrow. Be on with the folks over at NBC. As always, the way that we wrap this thing up here on the Matt Bernier Show is we send it into Out of the Gate. That's the Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview show. This week, myself and Illman, we were in studio. You had Nicole Russo, you had Jonathan Kinchin, you had Craig Milkowski, you had a whole crew bringing out all sorts of good stuff. Also had best bets that we will go to momentarily. Again, my name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. You can watch the show live on live.drf.com, livestream.com. Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle, as well as their Facebook page. If you want to check it out, podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. You got 5 million ways to find this thing. No excuse. If you want to find it, you can find it. Again, 4:30 Eastern tomorrow. NBC will be out there. We'll have some fun. Hopefully pick a couple winners. Without further ado, best of luck this weekend. Let's throw it in to Out of the Gate.